Greetings, Earthlings! My name is Zero Jake and welcome back to Space Engineers. We are on our lunar base where last episode we created this lovely custom railgun. Turreted, of course, and it has a 2-kilometer shooting range to shoot down any capital ships that could threaten our borders, like there are any around at the moment. I've done some progress in converting the other towers. I've done the first stage. I'll set up rotors and what have you later on. But in today's episode, we are going to deal with our current crisis, which is cargo containers. If we, for example, go to our ingot cargo container, you can see it's full of components. That's not right. Also, we've got a massive amount of components and it's just a mess. So we're going to be doing two things. Firstly, we're going to increase our inventory capacity, and secondly, we're changing out our sorting script, I guess. There's no better word for it. Yeah, we're going to change out our sorting script from Tim to Eam, Izzy's inventory management. So let's get the second warehouse, I guess, up and running, and then we shall get started on converting everything over to the new system. Right, so as a first layer, we can fit a total of 24 cargo containers. I'm going to start welding them up. It's going to take me a while. Alright, there we go. That's the first layer of the new warehouse completed. We've now quadrupled our storage capacity. In the previous one, over there, we've only got 8 large cargo containers. Now we've got 24 here, for a total of 32. So now that we've got the inventory capacity to sort things properly, we're now going to start converting everything over to Izzy's inventory management. First things first, I would need to clear all the LCDs and all the other parameters, but I've already done that because that's tedious. The next thing we need to do is we need to go over to our lovely programmable block located in the medical room and try not to lag and kill myself. That would be useful. So inside this programmable block, first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of everything that Tim has so that it stops running. Nice. We can then kill that and instead rename it Inventory Management. Now, I do believe if we type in Tim, we've still got all of these containers with a bunch of Tim tags, so to speak. I'm going to go get rid of those, and then we'll get started. Okay, so now that I've done that cleanup, the next thing that we need to do is we need to install the script. So, we're going to head into Edit, we're going to browse scripts, and we're going to grab Izzy's Inventory Manager, which you can find a link to in the description. So let's copy that to Editor, and then we're going to have a look at these. I recommend you have a look at this guide here. I'll also link it in the description, but we're going to go through a couple of the configuration points before we start everything up. So firstly, we're going to disable the fill name in the container's name, or rather, disable the fill level. We're going to disable the containment assignment, which is automatic, and since our containers are a mess at the moment, we don't want that happening. We want to manually control where all of these things are going. Next, we're on to auto crafting. We're going to want to enable auto disassembly for now. Since we've got a lot of surplus materials, I don't think we need to do anything else in this list. We're going to disable the show no conveyor tag so that it stops adding things to the names of our containers. We're going to disable the ability for it to temporarily store things on connected grids. Right, and that should be it. We're at the end of configuration. So we should just be able to click this button and everything will break, because that's my luck these days. Okay, there we go. We are initialized and the script is running. It's currently not doing anything, or at the very least, thanks to our configurations, it shouldn't. I do believe the assemblers shouldn't be randomly producing things. Right, so now that we've got that installed, we need to set everything up. First things first, we're going to want to go over to an LCD screen. Press the right button. Let's name this something better. Medical. Yes, it is how you spell medical. And then we're going to go IIM-main, and that is going to make this a main screen for the inventory script. Like so. It's going to show us any warnings. It's going to show us the number of containers for each type of inventory item, so ores, ingots, components, tools, etc. It's going to show us the number of managed blocks and what it did last. So the last thing it did is move uranium into our large reactor, or the excess uranium to a cargo container. So that's pretty simple, but there's not much going on here. If we enter into the custom data of the LCD screen, we can change these settings. So we can show the header, the warnings, the container stats, managed blocks, last action, and scroll the text if needed. I'm going to turn this one off because actually this is a place for debugging, so we'll keep this here. And then this one I'm going to keep blank for now because I'm going to head over to our lovely little section above the warehouse. Right, so as you can see, we've got a bunch of LCD screens that are blank and nothing on the other side. Cool, just checking. So we're going to want to get this one over here. We're going to go warehouse. I'm going to copy that so I don't forget. So we're going to set up another main screen just for ease of use. That's going to pop up any second. There we go. And we're going to disable the last action. Going to keep the warnings. Show heading, container managed blocks. We don't need this one either. Actually, we're going to be setting up 3 of these main screens. One in the medical room, one in this warehouse section, and one over at the docks. And each of them is going to be showing less and less information. That's a rust freighter, we don't need to deal with that. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to get ourselves the inventory screens. So we're going to enter into the LCD panel, we're going to rename it properly, and we're going to go IIM inventory, which if I've done this correctly, will turn into an inventory screen. Yeah. This is case sensitive, you need a capital I in inventory. Good, good. So it's come up with, I'm going to jump and hover so that you can see what's going on. It's got some instructions. And it's got some hints and tips, and you can see there's a link in the description, or rather a link at the bottom for the full guide. So we're going to set up this inventory screen. Let's enter custom data, and we're going to, for example, enter ingot. And it's going to change itself so it shows all of our ingots, and its default is out of 10,000. We're going to change that because it's not a helpful metric, because as you can see we've got 8,000% of our iron, because we've got 809,000 iron. Yeah, that's pretty tasty. Additional things that we can do is we can enter here and we can say, hey, we want to force everything onto a single line. So we type in the single line, obviously case sensitive since we're dealing with scripting language, and then it will make it so that it's on a singular line, which means that we also have room afterwards. We can go, or put that on a single line as well. And we can see ores. Now, we've only got ice on the base. All of our ores have been refined thanks to our very powerful refinery bay over there. So as soon as we get additional ores, this list will increase, and it should keep all of the different ores there after it's learned that the ore exists. Because this system does learn, it doesn't have a preset list, which means that if we set up the auto-crafting, it can craft any item we teach it rather than just the ones in vanilla. So now that we've done that, we're going to set up another one for components. So let's do the same thing that we've done before, warehouse, IIM, inventory with a capital I. This should reset. We're going to set this to show component. We're going to have each component on single line. And it's going to show us all of our components. Now, as before, we've got the maximums as 10,000, as you can see on this column, and we're going to need to change that, but we're not going to do that just yet. You can see that we've got some things we've got in abundance. If we have a look at the percentages, we can see that we've got construction components about 700% more than we should, interior plate 300% more than we should, etc, etc. Steel plate's currently sitting at 1778%. these values are wrong. So we're going to fix that, but we're going to do that in a second. For the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up the auto-crafting LCD screen. So as before, we're going to go LCD warehouse, colon, and then we're going to put auto-crafting, which technically should work. As you can see. Now, because we've set up the auto-crafting LCD screen, it means that the values on this right-hand side have updated. So everything is currently sitting at 100%. By default, it will take the current amount of items in the inventory when you first create the auto-crafting screen and set those as the maximum. Now, we don't want everything on one screen, so we're going to make this a cross LCD screen system. So let's do this properly. Warehouse. No, yes. Auto crafting 2. And it will split across the two screens. Like so. Makes it easier to look at, to be honest. Now, we've got some modifiers here that we can put on the right-hand side. So if we open up the screen, we can change this value to change how much we want. And we can put in a modifier, so we can say we want this much, but we only want to assemble it. We want this much, but only deassemble, so we don't create any more, but we just disassemble down to that value. We can make it a priority in the queue, so if we want to prioritize steel plate, we can do so. We can hide it and ignore it. So hiding it will remove it from this screen. But we've not just got components, we've got everything that we can craft per vanilla. So we've got our ultimate automatic rifle item, because we've got a couple of those. We've got some welders, we've got some oxygen bottles. We've also got some NATO ammo, which I believe is the assault rifle ammo. But it says no blueprint. This means that the auto-crafting system doesn't know how to build it. We're going to go through that in a second, but I'm going to go through and set these numbers to something that sounds sensible. And then we'll get into teaching this thing how to craft things. Okay, so I've set some values. I'm going to explain what's going on here. So you can see on this line, we've got 7D7 greater than 0. Let's go through that so you can actually tell. On the right-hand side, as you can see, we've got regular numbers. There's nothing complicated about them. This is the amount that we want. On the left-hand side, before the square brackets, we've got the amount that we currently have. And then in the square brackets, we've got what it's doing. So A for assemble, which we can see here, and D for disassemble. Disassemble will show us how much is disassembled, or rather how much is in queue to be disassembled. And what this is trying to do is make it so the left-hand side equals the right-hand side. And then this center column, where equals is sometimes, but greater than and less than exist, is telling us, do we have more or less than the amount that we want? And so the assemblers will automatically be tasked and assemble the things that we want, disassemble the things that we don't want. Makes sense, it's very simple, and much better than the previous system. Right, now that I've done that, we're going to need to teach this thing how to make some ammunition. Okay, welcome back to the medical room, where we set up the first LCD screen and the script itself. We have built an assembler. You might question why we've got an assembler in the medical room, but hey, it probably helps if, you know, our entire assembly field gets destroyed in one attack. So, first things first. We're going to need to set this assembler up so that it will teach the system how to make the items. The way this works is, first of all, we want to set this assembler so it can learn. So let's go into the control panel and we're going to put ! learn. This should mean that if we look in the inventory, this should clean out in a second, once it stops producing things. Ignore that, we'll get around to sorting in a second. So we've got our assembler. We've got it set so that it will teach the system and the system will learn from it. We're going to go into production and we're going to go find the NATO ammo that it can't build for some reason. Okay, in order to learn an item, we must first get the item and put 100 into queue. And we shall wait until the script decides to learn, and then it should remove this queue. There we go, we can see it's learning, for it has changed the name of the assembler. and it has learnt it, and it has gotten rid of the learning tag. If you want an assembler that stays as a dedicated learning machine, we can instead type in learn many, which means that once it's done with a learning process, it will reset back to learn many, and it won't be used for our automated assembly. As you can see. Now, we can go back into our auto-crafting script. Script, you say? No, auto-crafting screen. We can look down and we can see that it still has no blueprint. I am this close to punching something. We can go into the edit text and we can see somewhere our precise automatic rifle gun mag 500. Yeah, that's a great name for an item. We should also be able to see something else, but because this thing auto-sorts, you know what, we should be in a different location for this. Right, let's head back to this screen so that we can read it properly. So we've got our precise rifles, which have been learned and is now on the system, but not our 5p 5.6 45mm. I'd like to know what they're talking about. So let's have a look. NATO. So we've got these, which should be the thing that they're looking for. Oh. Is that because you can't be built anymore? Have I got a legacy item that can't be built? Because it certainly looks like it. That would explain things. Because there's not a recipe for it, but the item is still supported. Makes sense. Can I... Okay. Keep that there. We'll get the learning area. We're going to stick our ammunition in there. Apart from we can't for some reason. Okay, I guess we're just going to have to destroy the ammunition. It shouldn't exist, so therefore we shall destroy it. Imagine if this crashes my game. Ah, look, some ammunition. And as the stories will tell you, don't grind explosives. Even if they're, you know, small arms explosives. Right. Now that we've done that, we should get rid of the entry in here. And then it should forget it, right? No, cool. So we're going to have to use one of our modifiers. We're going to put hide and ignore on that one so that it doesn't annoy me by existing. So it should disappear on the next update. As you can see. Nice. I'm also going to ignore the rifle ammo because that's going to annoy me as well. Okay. So that's the auto-crafting setup, and as you can see, we have nearly assembled everything to the values that we wanted at. Which is good. If we have a look on our inventory situation, we can see that we're out of gold. Well, yeah, we are out of gold. That's 1.3, not 1k. So I'm going to need to go on a gold run, we're going to need more platinum, more magnesium, etc, 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 and we're going to want to set those values. Yeah, that sounds good. Last thing that we need to do before we can sign off for today is we need to set up the sorting, which is very simple. We go outside. Yes, that's... You heard me right. You go outside, you turn off the game, well, preferably you save, but it's up to you. You turn off the game, you go outside and enjoy the sunlight that threatens to burn through my curtains like, I don't know, an angel on fire. Right, over here. And this is where the fun begins. Now, in the previous system we had it so that each cargo container had a priority listed from 2 to however many I wanted. So if they were of the same type, so that the first container would have the most, second would have second most, third would have third most, etc, etc. We can do exactly the same thing here. And instead of entering in a square brackets Tim etc tag, we can instead go cargo components, and then components show up in a second, maybe 90 seconds later. Okay, so it looked like it just took about 30 seconds to sort everything out. It's probably going through every single inventory in the base whilst doing this. That's fine, we don't need the sorting system to be that fast. He says he's going to complain about it later. So, this is set of priority 2. I'm going to go to the next one and miss it. Oh no, we didn't miss. Cool, we're going to set this up as component priority 3. No, that's the previous one. This one. I should really stop jumping over these cargo containers. The gravity is not enough for me to do anything about it. Okay, so after some time, this second container was filled. So I'm going to set up the priorities and parameters for each of these containers, and we'll be back once the system is properly filtered out. Right, as you can see, I have finished naming all of the cargo containers. We've got roughly, well, okay, take this number -1. We've got 12 cargo containers full of components, or rather, that would be full of components if we had that many. We've got 6 for ingots and 6 for ores. We've also got 1 of them for ammunition. And then we've also got the cargo bay in the medical room that has the tools and bottles. So that would be the hydrogen, oxygen bottles, and all the tools that we make. Now, I've done some rearranging, like a very tiny amount. This... I was supposed to jump there. Right. This screen now contains our ammunition count, our physical gun object count, and the things that have bottle in the word. Makes sense if you think about it correctly. We can see that we've got all of the things that we need for this. The only things that we are lacking are down in the components section, where we've got thruster components and superconductors at a deficit. And this is because they share gold as a resource and we've got no gold. So we can go over to our inventory, we can go and find our component cargoes, we can hide empty, and we can see that Bay 2 is full, Bay 3 is full, 4 is full, 5, 6, we got 6 and a bit we got 5 and a bit cargo containers full of components. That's how much stuff we have. And that's why the entire base was clogged up. Now this only came about because the previous inventory manager kept auto-crafting more because it was based on percentage. And because it's a percentage of the total amount of inventory you have, anytime that you increase the amount that you've got because you're crafting up to the quota, it increases the quota itself, which means you could just continuously make things. And that's not the same for just one component. You'd hit the quota eventually because of Zeno's law. Because it's doing every single component type, it means that Zeno's law is only going to take into effect somewhere vague in the future, and that's not helped by the fact that those assembly orders that it was doing aren't precise. So it was making more than it needed, which means it's going over quota and would just continuously drain resources and yada yada. And anytime that I reload the world, it would reset the quotas and do it percentage-wise. But this time, we've got a system that is not percentage-based. And if it does reset, it's very easy to set these back to the numbers that they need to be without the system getting confused. In fact, I think when it reinstantiates, it will just select the current amount of items we've got for each type of item and set that as the want, which means it won't go ahead and try and assemble 10,000 superconductors because it feels like we need them. Sorry, ranting over. Okay, there is one last thing that I need to show you, and that is how to set up the maximum values for the ingots and ores and anything else that isn't a auto-crafted component. So, if we go over to the screen, we can open this up, wrong one, and we go into custom data. Then, as a parameter on this line, so we've got the ingot class that we're showing, we've got it, the single line parameter active, then we want to set another one. So let's say 100,000. It will then reset these to be 100,000 once it next cycles through and changes things. Okay, yeah, it works if you set it before the rest of the parameters. Good job there, Jake. Excellent work. We don't exactly need to show parameters for the ores, so what we can do is enter the ore config. So we've got a single line here already, and we want something else. So we've got single line already, so it's on one line instead of taking 2 lines, and we put 0. And it will get rid of the bar entirely and just show the number, which is unhelpful. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. In case you want to do that, that's a thing you can do, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put this to 100,000 as well. Excellent. So as you can see, we've still got 0% of our gold, but we've also got some materials that we are kind of low on, such as cobalt, magnesium and platinum we knew already, and uranium also needs getting as well. If anything's at this no bar area, then that tells me that I need to go pick it up. Now the only question is, if I set up another screen like this, but 10,000 instead of 100,000, will it show differently? I think it will. Now, one other thing that we could do, and which I'm going to do when I set it up over at the dock, because that's where we're going to need this information, is we can go into custom data, and instead of saying ingot, we can say iron. And it will show us the amount of iron that we've got, and only iron. We can get rid of this header here, because that's going to be annoying, by going no header. We want single line, and we want, for example, let's say we want a nice round 500,000 iron in our base. We can set that up and we can say, hey, we've got 292% of the iron that we want. It's probably going to be better if I set that to 1 million, isn't it? Apart from that, no header's not working because I didn't do that properly. It's not no header, it is no heading. Like so. And say that we want to actually emulate the ingots. We can instead... No. Edit the custom data. Yes. We can then have echo, and that will allow us to type in whatever we want. So if I do this, it's going to show up like this and look stupid. Sounds good. We're going to want a line here, so that's an empty line. And we want this to be in the middle, so we want ingots. And then there is a different way of typing in the echo, which will set the alignment of the text, so we want center. Like so. Pretty neat. And then all we need to do is we need to copy this line, paste it in, and change each of the types so we have each of the ores in the sorting that we want, and change these numbers to change their maximums. Makes sense. I'm not going to do this for this system here because we don't need to. But I will do it when I set up the other LCD screens, and I'm going to do that off camera just so that I don't tire people out. And that concludes everything that needs to be done today in order to set up our new sorting system. I'm going to go get some gold because we are out of it, and I have said so before, we kind of need it. But until next time, my name has been Zero Jake. End transmission.